to talk about the Constitution. And we're only, as a side issue, here to talk about politicians. Now, when you see politicians, they usually say they are public servants. If you ask a politician what they do, they say, I'm in public service. That word service has any number of applications. There's the service department at your car dealership. There's the service department at Publix and other places that you go. And I remember back when I first heard the word service used in a way that kind of bewildered me. I was a young lad growing up in Iowa, and my grandpa handed me the halter to a cow. He said, walk this cow up to Uncle Ora's place to be serviced. I said to my grandpa, what does serviced mean? He said, he looked at me, paused for a moment, contemplated, and said, Sammy, you're too young to know. Just take the cow up there. So I walked the mile or so up to Uncle Ora's place. And I hand Uncle Ora the halter. He starts to lead the cow off to the barn. I said, Uncle Ora, what does serviced mean? And much like my grandfather, he paused for a moment and said, you're too young to know. But being more curious than cautious, I found a hay bale, propped it up against the wall of the barn, and I crawled up on top of the hay bale so that I could see in a window. And at first, I couldn't see at all. I had to use my hand to wipe the window, and I could finally see, and I looked in there. And now I know what it is that politicians are doing to the people of America. Yeah, I know, I get a kick out of that one too. That was actually, I borrowed that one from Will Rogers. That was where that story originally came from. My own approach to this is very constitutional. What I mean by that is that many of you know that there are questions about other politicians' eligibility, constitutional eligibility, to be on the ballot. And the only reason that we're focused on Obama is that he's the only candidate on the ballot where there's a question about his eligibility. Marco Rubio isn't on the ballot. Bobby Jindal isn't on the ballot. So we're not concerned about those other folks. We're concerned primarily about who's going to be on the ballot in 2012 in Florida. I would also ask you, I know because I've done talks like this around the country, and your brains are just brimming with questions. And what I'd like you to do is hold the questions until we get done with our official presentation, and then we'll open it to the floor for questions. And then when the press conference is officially over, we will have 4 people who know what they're doing, including a local attorney who's been assisting me, and we will spread to different parts of the room so that we can break into small groups. And you can ask even further questions at that time, but we will be taking questions from the floor when we're done with our official presentation. On my right is Mike Voeltz. Mike, no, yes, right. I want to make sure I got the name right. Mike really was proactive in this. He filed the way you're supposed to file and did it on time. And because of his proactive approach to doing this, he drove all the way up to Tallahassee in order to file it. And because of that, he is represented by Larry Klayman. Larry Klayman is a nationally known attorney who started the Judicial Watch and a few other national organizations. He lives in Beverly Hills, California, which means that he's probably not very popular with his neighbors when he takes on a cause like this. And we'll hopefully be hearing from Larry by phone at some point. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to turn the mic over to Mike, and he can tell us about what his participation is in this and what it is that he's doing with his part of it. And again, please hold your questions until we're done with our official presentations. All right. And by the way, that mic, you have to get pretty close to it.
Okay.
Oh, hold on a second. See what I told you? I told you, my wife is the one that keeps me on track. Would you please all stand?
Absolutely. Yeah, so where is he?
Face the flag. And Bunny is going to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I have the habit, because I'm a clergyman, I have the habit of ending that with amen.
Amen.
Anyway, okay, thank you for holding for a second, Mike.
Hello.
Hello.
Piggybacking on what Sam was talking about, I'm imagining you all naked right now, so. This all started a long time ago. I've been reading, I don't know if you all know Theo D'Onofrio, his blog, and I feel like he is probably the most knowledgeable source of information on the subject of, what a natural-born citizen is, and I've learned a lot, and I probably know more about it than most attorneys, or any attorney, which I find to be very lacking in any kind of knowledge about the Constitution to begin with. I mean, that there is not one attorney in the United States, that there's not 100 of them, taking up this cause tells you a lot about the law profession. What I started with was, when this all started happening, I researched it, and I researched Florida statutes trying to find out, how does an ineligible candidate get on our ballot? And I found, statute 99.0212, which is the federal candidate oath. That federal candidate oath is part of the ministerial duty of the Secretary of State of Florida, as written in the Florida statutes. What it says is that the candidate is pledging that he is constitutionally eligible for the job he is seeking. Pretty simple. But it's not that simple, because when I did an FOIA request for those oaths for Barack Obama and Joe Biden, and for 2004 with George Bush, George Bush and Gore and Obama and no, not Biden. McCain, who's not eligible either, by the way. What I found was they said they didn't have it. They didn't have the oath. So, reading the oath again and again, I saw there was no exclusion in that oath. It says that all federal candidates shall take this oath. That's what it says in the statute. Well, I kept persisting with the Department of State. I wouldn't let it go. Finally, they got me in touch with Mr. Gary Holland, who was an attorney for the Department of State. And what he did was try to tell me that that statute was mooted, made inoperable by the Presidential Primary Selection Committee, which is State Statute 103.021 through 103.101. Basically, that committee is a committee of political party leaders within the state, along with a few, the head of the Senate in the state, and also with the Secretary of State as the non-voting chair, and they supposedly qualify the candidates. Well, they don't do any qualifying. That meeting lasts, and Gary Holland told me this specifically, 5 minutes. They don't do any qualifying. It's basically a rubber stamp committee. So he was trying to tell me that this federal candidate oath is mooted by this presidential primary selection committee meeting that lasts 5 minutes. Well, and he said that was by the law of statutory construction. Let me tell you a little bit about that. The law of statutory construction says that two statutes have separate effect unless one is specifically excluded, or if the two statutes cannot exist side by side. Well, number one, the two statutes can exist side by side because the Secretary of State is the non-voting chair of the Presidential Primary Selection Committee, and they do no real qualifying at all anyway. There's no overlapping duty. Number two, there are no exclusions in the federal candidate oath statute. The only exclusion, and this tells you something, is for a federal judge who take a different oath. Okay? That's the only exclusion in that statute. So, me and Gary Holland, this is since like October 2009. Me and Gary Holland go back and forth. He's tired of me, believe me. He don't want to hear from me.
Good.
And finally, it comes out in 2011, May of 2011, that House Bill 1355, realigning all the Florida election statutes, is passed. It's a huge bill. I think they did the whole thing for this one purpose. Buried deep in that bill is State Statute 99.0213, which excuses the president and vice presidential candidates from taking the oath. So Gary Holland was telling me that the Presidential Primary Selection Committee mooted this oath, and no exclusion is necessary because of that by statutory construction. But then they go ahead and create a new law trying to justify their illegal conduct. That's what's going on, okay? That tells me right there that it is not only both sides of the political aisle that are in on this installment of this illegal president, it is also the states and the state governments.
Correct.
Okay, that's what that tells me. Now, also by statutory construction, that bill, that statute, 99.0213, excusing the president and vice presidential candidates from taking the oath, violates the provision of 102.168, which is the contested election or nomination statute in Florida. Basically, that statute, our contest of eligibility of a candidate is based on the candidate's oath. Okay? We are contesting his oath by that statute. But now they're taking away the oath. So basically, that law contradicts the contested election law. And I believe that's part of what I'll be doing in attacking this problem, is trying to get 99.0213 invalidated. Because the other part of it is that the ministerial duty of the Secretary of State of Florida has to be with discretion to Article 2 in a presidential election. That is held by the Supreme Court of Florida, and write this down. This is the case. This is an important case. McPherson versus Blacker, 146 U.S. 1. McPherson versus Blacker. That was in 1892. And that case held that the exclusions and eligibility requirements for the electors and for the presidents have to be done, the ministerial duty has to be done with discretion to Article 2. And as far as the exclusions within Article 2, there are only two. One is that the electors cannot be federal or state government officers. Number two is that no person but a natural-born citizen can be president. They're both exclusions, okay? So the ministerial duty with respect to presidential elections has to be done with discretion to Article 2. And that is, if you read Bush versus Gore, you know, a lot of that decision is about 14th Amendment, protection of, equal protection of the laws. But in the concurrence of that decision, they also talk about the ministerial duty of the Secretary of State with discretion to Article 2. Basically, they were saying that the time period that it would have taken to secure the equal protection of the laws to all the voters would not be in time to get the elector seated in the Electoral College. And having the elector seated in the Electoral College is the part of the ministerial duty of the Secretary of State of Florida as mandated by the Florida legislature. I'm sorry if I'm like, I got a lot of stuff in my head. Also, the oath, let me tell you this about the oath. Florida advisory opinions for the Department of Elections have stated that the oath transfers liability under penalty of fraud to the candidate. Okay? They're trying to do away with any kind of liability at all to any candidate. Basically, what the state of Florida is doing is saying that you don't have to be a natural-born citizen, you don't even have to be a citizen, you don't have to be 35 years old, you don't have to be 14 years resident. They're basically amending Article 2 of the Constitution. That's what they're doing by excusing the presidential and vice presidential candidate from taking the federal candidate oath. That is the only ministerial duty really done as far as eligibility in the state of Florida. And they're not doing any. They're not doing any ministerial duty as far as eligibility versus Article 2. Zero. So I think that is and basically what's going on is nobody is claiming anything. Nobody is pledging that anybody is eligible. Barack Obama will not claim he's eligible as a natural-born citizen. The Democratic Party of Florida will not claim he's eligible. The DNC have not claimed he is eligible. The 2008 presidential, the nomination certificate sent to the state of Florida says that he is duly nominated, not that he is constitutionally eligible. This is all lawyerly wordsmith that they're doing to avoid pledging or making any kind of claim of eligibility. They are making no claim. So basically, I think what's happening is that since there is no claim to eligibility, then there's nothing to contest. You know, we're not contesting anything because they haven't claimed anything. That's the way they're playing this game. So we do have standing in a court of equity. The law of equity statutes in Florida, 86.021 through 86.111, are pretty wide open. Basically, they give you an avenue of relief when no relief is given by statute, which is how we're having to proceed. Although I have filed my case within the letter of the law to the contest of election statute, there is no relief or there's nothing that says what can be done if the candidate is found ineligible in the statute. Okay? That's the way they play this game. They're creating a circle of exclusion where one party is, you know, relying on another party who hasn't claimed anything, and nobody's claiming anything. So now we have an ineligible president, and when there's an ineligible president, then there is no law, because the president is the executor of the law. Okay? He is the executor of the laws. Why do you think the that the 1% have gotten off scot-free and been given trillions of our money while we go unemployed, while we are forced to endure TSA pat-downs, while we are forced to endure red light cameras, while we are forced to endure drones. You know, there is no law, and that's the way they want it. It's all about power for them. And this is a big uphill battle. You know, it's very daunting that the whole machine is positioned against us. And there's not, I've been trying to wake people up for 3 years. And some people, you know, they get mildly interested, but they're not all that interested in the end. Nobody's willing to, you know, put some skin in the game. And I felt like I had to do that. So that's why I filed. And hopefully I will get my day in court. And that's about it for now.
Well, we've got a room full of folks here that are more than lukewarm. Am I right?
Yes.
That's what I thought. Who would have ever thought that the Second American Revolution would start in Naples, Florida, you know? By the way, you do that, being able to reel off those laws, you do that better than I do Bible verses. That's amazing. All right. This is the approach, this is the conventional approach. Mike's case was filed exactly the way that the state says it is supposed to be filed. And of course, he's got a powerhouse of an attorney behind him on this. But this guy sitting over here on my left, he's a paralegal. From his appearance, you can probably tell why they don't want him in a courtroom. That was funny. I got permission to say that before we came here. So what he did, what he's actually famous for with cases all over the United States, is his unique ways of coming up with legal theories and legal tactics. In addition to being a paralegal, by the way, he's also a fellow Mensa, for any of you people that are out here that belong to Mensa. Well, I should point out, by the way, that Mensa as an organization has no political stand whatsoever. They're not allowed to. But that doesn't mean that those of us who are individuals that belong to Mensa can't have a political point to take. So what I want you to do for us, Jerry, this is Jerry Colette, by the way, is I want you to tell us why your case is different and what it is that you're doing with the do-it-yourself ballot challenge and the other things like that.
Oh, thank you, Sam. Yes, I am a paralegal, and besides being a fellow Mensa with Sam, I'm also a pastoral counselor, and so we have a lot in common, and this is actually the first time we've actually met in person, so it's an honor to be here with Sam and Bunny and all of you folks who are in support of the Constitution. Yes, I've been an active patriot paralegal for quite a while. Probably the thing I'm most famous in the patriot community for is back in the last presidential election, Ron Paul supporters wanted to fly a blimp for Ron Paul, but they didn't want to get in any problems with the campaign finance laws. They didn't want money going to the blimp to come out of the amount of money that people could donate to Ron Paul's campaign. Back before the Citizens United decision, there was a lot of restrictions on free speech and finance. And while they say it was designed to protect us against the corporations, what it really did was protect the entrenched politicians against people like Ron Paul, who have people beholden to nobody, but just wanted to give them a lot of money. Well, I figured out a way to bypass all of the campaign finance laws that were in place at the time. NPR called it the campaign finance loophole as big as the Ron Paul blimp. And we did actually raise over $600,000 in 2 months and flew the blimp quite a few places. And unfortunately, Ron's campaign kind of fizzled, and so there wasn't a desire to keep flying the blimp. but I've been watching this eligibility issue from the sidelines for quite a while and watched over 100 cases fall on procedural issues with no judge actually reviewing the documentary evidence. Like, let's look at the original birth certificate. Unlike some people who believe that Barack Obama isn't eligible, I haven't seen enough evidence to have a belief either way, nor has any other judge. In order to really come to that conclusion, we've got to get some judge willing to actually look at the evidence. Back right before Mike filed his case, there was an administrative law case in Georgia, which was actually the first case where some judge, although it was an administrative judge, was actually going to have a real hearing on it. Well, at least I thought it was going to be a real hearing. And when I saw that Mickey Mouse hearing that went on, I just said, you know, I got to do something about this. So I looked into what was going on. I looked at the Florida statutes. I now live here in Florida because I'm here taking care of my aged mother. And I recognized that the window of opportunity that the state provides to do something like Mike did is A, a very short window, B, you have to be a Democrat to actually do it when Mike did it, because you have to be an elector who would have voted for somebody else other than Barack Obama, which I wasn't. The window was already too late. And you have to file it in Tallahassee for a general election that goes in multiple counties. Well, I didn't want to do any of that, because one of the things Larry Klayman had stated, and I recognize this, is that what we really need to get a case like this really resolved is we got to find, Larry called it one judge who's willing to, who can save America. I really just simplified it. We need to find that one honest judge. And the way to do that is to file multiple cases all over the place till we get one judge who says, yeah, I want the evidence. And will actually order Barack Obama to release those original birth records that are in Hawaii. And not to mention, there's also the whole natural-born citizen issue, that even if he really was born in Hawaii, which certainly is a question at this point, nobody's really looked at that 400 years of law that we have showing what is a natural-born citizen, and looking pretty likely that Barack Obama isn't one. So I looked at what are the ways we can approach this, and how can we file these multiple cases all over Florida and all over the country. And the first thing I came up with was the idea that if the Constitution sets out the requirements for somebody to be president, by implication, that gives each and every one of us a right not to be governed by somebody who doesn't meet those requirements.
Amen.
And nobody has ever made that argument before, but it's a natural conclusion from the eligibility requirements. And the courts have repeatedly, in many, many cases, found implied rights by the stated rights. Probably the most classic implied right that people know about is the Roe versus Wade case, that I know not everybody in here agrees with, nor do I. But the point is, the court found that there were some implied rights that they were going to enforce from the unstated rights in the Constitution. So it's not a stretch for courts to find implied rights, and it doesn't take a logical genius to see that if the eligibility requirements lay those out, that we have the right not to be represented by somebody who doesn't meet them. So that was actually my first cause of action, is based on the fact that we have an implied right, and that should give us standing. The other interesting thing is there is a section in the Florida Constitution which basically says the courts are always open to resolve disputes that people have. So that gives us another standing, because one of the things the courts have been kicking people out on all over the country, saying you don't have standing to be here asking for the relief. But there's a specific provision in the Florida Constitution that says we have standing to be before those courts asking for relief. So that's the other key piece that I was able to find and use in my case. Now, even assuming I'm correct that we do have the right to not be represented by somebody who doesn't meet the eligibility requirements, well, because that's only an implied right, not an actual codified stated right, how do we get relief on that? Well, there was a case before the U.S. Supreme Court, and it's called Bivens, B-I-V-E-N-S. It's a pretty famous case. And what the court said is, when certain rights are so important, even though there's no provision for a remedy is implied by the fact that you have the right. So that was how I tied in that implied right with the remedy, and that is in the complaint that, by the way, is available online, do-it-yourself ballotchallenge.org. It's the whole do-it-yourself ballot challenge kit. It is written for Florida. So if you know anybody in any other counties in Florida so far, the only one who've done it, we want to file it in all 22 judicial districts in Florida. So if you know some people who want to do it, you can join together and all be plaintiffs, split the filing fees. So that is the first cause of action in the do-it-yourself ballot challenge kit. Second cause of action is what's called negligence per se, which is like torts 101. Torts is how you remedy a wrong that somebody does as opposed to a contractual violation of a breach of contract. And what negligence per se means is if somebody, like a classic example, if somebody runs a red light and hits your car, well, they violated the law that you're not supposed to run a red light. So it's very easy to prove they were negligent because just the fact that they violated the red light statute, they are negligent by violating it. You don't have to show anything else. And so what we have is we have the constitutional requirement for a president to be eligible. And so when Obama violates that, causing us damages, he is negligent per se. And again, I've never seen in all 100 cases that anybody has filed a simple allegation towards one of to my complaint. There's a third piece which I didn't add, but I would love to add it in, and I'll tell you why I didn't add it in. It's called the Unfair Trade Practices Law. Obama and the Democrats are out there raising funds, trying to get you to vote for Obama, and advertising for him to be president with the clear implication, stated or unstated, that he's eligible. By making that implication that he's eligible, if he's not, it's basically an unfair trade practice for them to be asking us for money and trying to get us to vote for him and put him on the ballot. The reason I did not make that allegation is because the Unfair Trade Practices Act, in virtually all 50 states, has an attorney fee provision that cuts both ways, which means if we win, they pay our attorney's fees, but if we lose, we have to pay theirs. And I didn't want to have to pay their attorney's fees, since odds are I may not be in front of that one honest judge who's going to rule our way. So what Sam and I have done is we've formed a and Bunny as well, the three of us are on the board, and the way it's set up is I don't have any voting standing. The only way I would ever have a vote is if Sam and Bunny were to have a consensus they couldn't come to, and then my first duty is to not break the tie, but to get them to come to a consensus. So they're the only two who actually have any power on this other than me as the tiebreaker. But the nonprofit corporation's primary purpose is to be able to be a plaintiff and join into these cases and make these claims. But what we're going to do is we're going to wait until we find that we're in front of that one honest judge. And how are we going to know? Do we get enough people filing these claims all over the state and the country, and we survive those initial motions to dismiss? When we survive those initial motions to dismiss and that case is proceeding, now we know we're likely to be in front of a one honest judge. We'll have no difficulty raising the funds to get Larry or other lawyers, if we're in a different state where Larry isn't admitted, to go and continue with that case and bring also the trade practices claims on behalf of that nonprofit corporation that will make those claims. And yes, even a corporation has standing under the Unfair Trade Practices Act, which is one of the wonderful ways about it. They're basically written in such a way where if the Attorney General doesn't go and try to shut down or stop people from making unfair trade practices, anybody can go do that. It's like a private Attorney General statute that we are allowed to go and act on behalf of the general good. So out of all of the causes of action, I think it's our absolute best, but because of the attorney's fees provision, we're not bringing that yet. Now, if you folks are so behind this or know somebody who's so behind this that they're able to put up the attorney's fees as well, see, a corporation can't appear without an attorney. I can apply pro se, appear pro se by myself and file a case. Any one of you can go pro se, but a corporation can't appear pro se. It has to appear by attorney. And so we need a minimum of about $10,000 just to have an attorney go appear somewhere, which is why we want to make sure we're in front of an honest judge before we do that. But if somebody wants to fund that and put the attorney's fees up, we'd be glad as a corporation to go and join that lawsuit. So I think I've covered all of the bases of the essence of my suit. And again, the kit is specifically designed for Florida, but all it would do to, if you know people in other states, to do it in their state, all they need to do is just change a few things. And if you look online where the kit is, everything's all bracketed, where it just says change this Florida statute to whatever the applicable statute is for your state. And if we get people wanting to do it in their states, I'll just revise the forms for each of those states so that you can do them. And so we really wanted to do this all over the place so we can find, as Larry says, that one judge who can save America and really get to see the original documentation from Hawaii. And that's the stuff that Obama and the Democrats, and of course, you know, Obama did promise us the most transparent administration in U.S. history. Has anybody seen that yet?
Well, that's right, you can't see it because it's transparent.
Ah, that must be it, Sam! All right, well, I'm going to turn the mic over back to Sam. I suspect some of you might have some...
Turn the mic over to Mike again, because he had something he wanted to add.
All right, here's Mike. Thank you.
Thanks, Rick. I also wanted to add one thing. You know, as a Florida voter, you all actually take an oath. I don't know if you know that, to protect and defend the Constitution of the United States. And that's one of the bases of standing that I'm proceeding on. The Florida Secretary of State is also oathed to support the Constitution, which I think is a little bit less of a standard. But our oath is actually to protect and defend the Constitution. You all, if you're a registered voter in Florida, you take that oath. I just wanted to mention one other thing that you can look at yourselves. Federalist 68 by Alexander Hamilton actually defines natural-born citizen. It was written in March of 1788, just 6 months after the Constitution was written, before it was ratified. And you know, the Federalist Papers were basically the members of the Constitutional Convention selling the Constitution to the populace. They were the men that were there. They know what natural-born citizen means. And basically, it doesn't say the words natural-born citizen, but the paper itself is about the election of the president. And what it says is that in order to prevent foreign influence into the office of the president, what the convention did was to prevent an improper ascendant that would be a child of our own. That's the wording that he uses. Now, an improper ascendant, if you look up in Webster's Dictionary, 1813 or 1828, ascendant means ancestor. An improper ascendant, the indefinite article an, precedes a noun, okay? Ascendant can also mean a position of power. But the use of the indefinite article says that it means an improper ancestor in order to make sure that we get a child of our own. Could a child of our own possibly be the son of a communist Kenyan student, never U.S. citizen? Of course it can't. Okay? Federalist 68 by Alexander Hamilton defines natural-born citizen. You know, that's going to be part of my lawsuit. And, you know, Alexander Hamilton, what a lot of the Obama apologists like to say is that, you know, they make they like to present a false choice, just like Obama does. Okay? They say, oh, well, no one knows what natural-born citizen means. No one knows what it means. Yeah, it's a requirement of the President of the United States, but nobody knows what it means, really. You know? And there's been many cases in the Supreme Court that define it exactly, including in the Venus in 1814, only, 25 years after the Constitution was ratified, that defined it exactly as vattel, which was the child born in America of U.S. citizen parents, an indigenous citizen, a naturally occurring citizen. By the way, the most populous section of the citizenry of the United States. It is not nativist. It is not discriminatory. It is about security of the nation, to make sure that the allegiance of the president is secure. He is the guy that has his finger now on the nuclear button. Okay? He is the leader of our armed forces. It's a security requirement. It has nothing to do with rights. Okay? It's about eligibility. It doesn't say, by saying a 35-year-old has to be president is not discriminatory to 34-year-olds. Just like requiring a natural-born citizen is not discriminatory to other citizens. Their children, if they're born in the United States, can be president. When the 14th Amendment was enacted, and children born before that 14th Amendment, slaves, okay, were made citizens of the United States, they weren't made natural-born citizens. They were made citizens. They weren't eligible to be president, but their children, if born in the United States, were eligible. Okay, so it requires a firewall of 2 generations, and it's a security requirement. It has nothing to do with rights. Now, the false choice that they try to present is that, oh, well, no one knows what it means, so it must mean born a citizen. If you're born a citizen, you're a natural-born citizen. Well, U.S. Code 8, Section 1401 contains the U.S. citizen by birth statutes. U.S. citizens by birth include those born in a foreign country of one citizen parent. And they're clearly not eligible natural-born citizens. So obviously, a citizen at birth is not a natural-born citizen. Okay? Also, Alexander Hamilton first suggested that the requirement be born a citizen. That was his suggestion before John Jay's suggestion took precedence, and it was made natural-born citizen, which everybody knew. Incidentally, I don't know if you guys heard about this. I think George Washington was speaking from the grave. You all heard about the Vattel's Law of Nations that was recovered, that was an overdue book for like 250 years. Did y'all hear about that?
Yeah, I did.
They discovered Vattel's Law of Nations, from which the natural-born citizen clause came from. They discovered that overdue book from the New York Library. Originally, the White House was in New York, and that's where George Washington took office. And the stories behind the book are that he had it open on his desk almost continually. Well, the story came out that they had found this book that was overdue from George Washington from 200 some odd years ago. Okay, about law of nations, about natural law, which is, natural law is our common law. That's why it says in the Declaration of Independence, the law of nature, and nature is God. That's what our law is based on, okay? Our laws come from God. Our rights come from God, not from the government. Of course, the press doesn't mention anything about about this book and its importance and why it's important that the knowledge is out there that George Washington had this book continuously on his desk. And also where Alexander Hamilton, his textbook at the University of Virginia Law School, the original, when he founded University of Virginia, the textbook was Law of Nations, Vattel's Law of Nations, okay? People like to, the other thing they like to say is, our law doesn't come from some Swiss guy, because Vattel was Swiss. He wrote Law of Nations in French, though. And all of our founders and framers of the Constitution spoke French very well. French was the language of international relations at the time. So their claim that born a citizen equals natural born citizen, and this is even put on websites like Constitution.net, which is clearly a propaganda website. Okay? They talk, Constitution.net says, well, nobody knows what natural born citizen is, so it must mean a citizen at birth or a citizen from birth. And I'm just trying to tell you that that's not true. Okay? At the time, in 1795, after the Constitution was written, and Article 2 has never been amended. It's never been amended. Okay? Barack Obama, born under the same circumstances he was born, either whether he be white or black, would have been considered an alien who would have been naturalized upon the naturalization of his father during the child's minority. So therefore, he cannot be a natural born citizen today. No one has ever changed Article 2, Section 1, Clause 5. They like to say that the 14th Amendment did, but if you read McPherson versus Blacker, it's about the election of the president, and it talks about equal protection of the law, and it talks about the 14th Amendment with respect to presidential elections, and it mentions nothing about anything about the 14th Amendment being the same, a born citizen of the 14th Amendment being the same as a natural born citizen. Never. So I just wanted to put all that out there, that there's a lot of propaganda and a lot of lies, and Sam.
What the Founding Fathers were trying to do is make sure that foreign influence never became part of the Commander-in-Chief. They knew that in Europe, the different countries were always trying to influence the other countries. Frequently it was done through marriage. Most Americans do not realize that the royal house in England are Germans. Did you know that? Good, some of you have been doing your homework. In 1917, the King of England made a proclamation that they would no longer have the family name that was German, because in 1917 World War I was going on, and there was so much anti-German sentiment that they decided they should change their name to the House of Windsor. Now, Americans, of course, didn't want that kind of thing when we were forming this country. Now, let me just do a thought experiment. Imagine, if you will, a candidate for president who was raised by communist parents, raised by communist grandparents, whose father was a communist with a name like Boris Baczynski, right? And that he wants to, and that he was educated in a communist country. All right? Now imagine somebody like that running for president. Yet we have a man whose parents were communists, his grandparents were communists, he was educated in, at least his primary education was in a Muslim country, and his father was a Muslim, and he himself has a distinctly Muslim name, and yet he got elected. That's amazing. It's amazing that it happened at all. I don't know if any of you ever seen this this picture on the internet. You can't see it from there, but This is Barack Obama in Muslim garb. And I put underneath it, I said, no foreign influence here. This is just how us folks dress in Hawaii. John Jay, as you were saying, was the one that pushed the issue of natural-born citizen, and it was very clearly defined. Let's run through it. Let's be really simple about it. What a naturalized citizen is a person born in another country of foreign parents who completes the naturalization process. Who can name somebody that you know is a naturalized citizen? Yes?
I'm born in Canada and I became a citizen in 2004.
So you are a naturalized citizen.
I was an alien before.
All right, okay. Who else can name a naturalized citizen? Go ahead.
I was born in Germany, in the vicinity of the house of Hagelbach.
Oh, really? Actually, I thought you were from Georgia, given your accent. No. But yes, we had another one too. Oh, go ahead.
No, I
Repeat
wanted
what
to
she
say.
said, please.
What?
Repeat what she said.
She was born in Germany. All right, and we had another person back here. Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
And I'm also a retired OBGYN, and I signed so many birth certificates myself, and I know how they look.
Okay, and she knows how to do it. I like that. All right, and what was the...
I was born in Canada,
Okay,
and I think we're so close, Americans and Canadians are just neighbors.
all right. Who's the former governor of California? He was a naturalized...
Sam, please repeat what they said so we can all hear.
This lady was born in Canada. That's another example of a naturalized citizen. My own son-in-law is a naturalized citizen. Arnold Schwarzenegger was if I pronounce his name right, was a naturalized citizen. Now what that does is that citizenship allows you to run for every office, elected office, except president and vice president. Then there's native-born citizens. Native-born citizens are people who had foreign parents, but they were born here. Get this straight. Anchor babies cannot become president.
They're only presumed to be citizens. They're not, the Supreme Court has never actually held that.
Actually, that's true too.
Are U.S. citizens. They only assume it.
That's exactly right, but it is de facto.
What did he say?
He said that that's an assumed citizenship. It's correct because it's never been ruled on, but it's how everybody sees it.
But they're naturalized at birth by that assumption.
That's correct.
They are naturalized citizens, just as one born of one U.S. citizen parent and an alien is naturalized at birth because they're viewed to be subject to the jurisdiction of the United States.
Now, we find out that native-born citizens can also run for every office except president and vice president. Then we have natural-born citizens. Natural-born citizens must be the child of two citizen parents.
At birth.
Now, here's the problem.
Parents at birth.
What?
At birth.
At birth.
Yes, at the time the person is born, he needs to have two parents who are already citizens. That's what a natural-born citizen is. Here's where the problem comes in. We've got a unique... can I wait on questions, please?
It's a little confusing. You mean the parents of this baby who's born in the United States must also have been born in the United States?
No, they must also be citizens.
Oh, citizen.
They can be native-born, they can be naturalized. Their child would be a natural-born citizen. All right, now, here's where it gets a little bit confusing. Here's the confusion that people are relying on to confuse the public. Let's assume that Mr. Obama was born in Hawaii. As Jerry pointed out, there's actually no proof of that. As you know, there's probable cause. It's been determined by law enforcement agency that there's probable cause that the birth certificate that was issued April of last year is indeed a forgery. So we don't even know if Mr. Obama was actually born in Hawaii, but let's assume that. His father was a foreign national, never became a citizen of the United States, so we only have one parent who is an American citizen. So here we are, and this is important for everybody to realize. There are 4 Supreme Court cases that make it clear what a natural-born citizen is. There are all of the records of our founding fathers and what they thought natural-born citizen was. And there are even Immigration and Naturalization Service regulations that clearly define what a natural-born citizen is. But none of that has been applied specifically to Obama. So it's a legal theory rather than a legal fact that Obama is not a naturalized citizen. Or excuse me, he's not a natural-born citizen. That's the reason why it's so important that this case get in front of a judge, because all of the law is on our side. All of the regulations are on our side. All of the evidence of the founding fathers are on our side. If we can just get one honest judge to look at the evidence, we can make a clear statement that it has been legally determined that Barack Obama specifically is not a natural-born citizen. That's why this effort is so important. Now, I'm going to kind of, I guess that's about all I'm going to say on that as far as background. So we'll start taking questions from the floor, and I'm sure there's lots of them. So, yes.
I just want to make,
May I just add one thing?
Sure.
All right. In addition to what Sam mentioned about the 4 Supreme Court cases, and what Mike mentioned about, he pronounces it Vettel. I'm a Frenchman, I think it's Vettel, but whatever you pronounce it, there's stuff that even goes back all the way to 1608. There's a British case called Calvin's case. And again, right up to current United States Customs and Immigration Service interpretations of their regulations. So we have over 400 years of law showing what is a natural-born citizen. And even if Obama was born in Hawaii, which, as Sam says, is very questionable, he clearly is not a natural-born citizen. So we got 400 years of law showing that.
By the way, both of the cases that are filed in the state of Florida so far cover both of those issues. First of all, there's no proof that Mr. Obama was actually born in Hawaii. And second, even if he was, he's not a natural-born citizen because his father was not a citizen. Okay, Marjorie, what were you going to say?
Yeah, I just wanted to point out, I recently have read a book on the Alien and Sedition Acts, which came about in our country's infancy, and there might be something instructive in them, because one of the things that the founders were very afraid of was the French Revolution and the Jacobites that were being sent over here to foment possible another revolution. And in fact, such had been done in what they referred to as Santo Domingo, but it is now Haiti, and the Jacobites were over there fomenting revolution with Toussaint, the guy that started the revolution in Haiti, where France got kicked out, and there was a Jamaican influence there as well. So I just wanted to, I think that sheds some light on the thinking of the founders, because the French Revolution just didn't happen, as I recall, it's on my birthday, but 1789, I believe, was the date, and all this had to be going around as the Constitution was being written, because that was in progress even before the actual revolution.
By the way, I know for a fact that you're not that old. You were not born in 1789.
No, July 14th
Okay.
or later than that.
All right. Alien Sedition Act, exactly right. Basically what she's saying is that everybody is trying to export the revolution to America. We fought communists for years. Now we're fighting other influences that are trying to take over America, and that's the reason why the presidency is protected from foreign influence. At least that's the premise that we start with. Other questions? Yes, go right ahead.
Excuse me, Sam, I think what Bunny was suggesting is, since we're recording this, maybe we get the people who are asking their questions to come up and be on the mic. Maybe you can kind of line up along here or something, and we'll have everybody.
Well, that will work better than trying to get this to stretch to the people.
Yeah.
Did you want to come up and have something to say? Keep in mind, if you come up here, you're going to be on camera.
Well, first I want to congratulate all three of you. You have spoken all for at least an hour without a teleprompter. Second of all, I would like, when you talk about Article 2, you're talking about the Florida Constitution, not the federal Constitution.
No, federal.
Florida, the federal,
Yeah.
okay. All right. Has this been introduced to our Attorney General here in Florida, this request that you have? And my other question, have you ever approached Hannity, O'Reilly, the Tea Party? And there's a school of law here right at the Vineyard.
Yes.
Will they donate their time? They're from the Ave Maria Christian.
Okay.
They might give their time.
All right, let me do it backwards. We have not approached the law school to see if we can get attorneys to represent any of these cases. None of the national media will touch this.
That's right.
How many of you know what color the underwear at the inmates in Sheriff Joe's?
Hey.
All right. Now, everybody knows that. You know why? Because up until Sheriff Joe found probable cause for the birth certificate to be a forgery, he could get press coverage on everything. Imagine that. He got press coverage on the color of the underwear of his inmates, but he couldn't get press coverage on the forged document that the president, the pretender to the presidency, is essentially saying is legitimate. So no, all of the national media have completely shut this down.
Even Limbaugh and
Yes, they won't touch it.
Donald Trump?
Well, Donald Trump isn't media, and he got some media attention for it. As far as the Attorney General, the procedure for this case is to go to the Secretary of State. And the Attorney General, Pam Bondi, who's, as near as I can tell, a good conservative, I'm not quite sure how you would approach her. In other words, the appropriate procedure is to go to the court and file the suit. Did you have something to say about that?
There's a case in Florida, the Supreme Court of Florida case, Shevin versus Stone, which says that the Secretary of State has, this is the holding of the case, the Secretary of State has no ability to actually ascertain whether a candidate is a natural-born citizen or eligible for any office. You know, the fact that Virginia Minor was determined to be a natural-born citizen, that is, born of U.S. citizen parents on U.S. soil, was a determination, a judicial determination made in support of the holding of the case. The holding of the case was that citizens don't, by right, have the right to vote in a presidential election. That right is only given by the states. That is still good law today. And in Blacker and McPherson versus Blacker, they actually cite Minor versus Happersett, which, you know, none of the Obama apologists want to hear about that. But you know, they performed a test. The test was, did a citizen before the 14th Amendment have the right to vote? That was the test they applied to whether Virginia Minor had the right to vote. And to determine that fact, they had to determine that Virginia Minor was indeed a citizen before the 14th Amendment. Okay? They even say and label the judicial determination within the case that the citizenship of the plaintiff had to be determined. And they determined that before the 14th Amendment, U.S. citizens were those born of U.S. citizen parents on U.S. soil, or they were those that were citizens of the colonies when the Constitution was enacted. That's Article 2, Section 1, Clause 5. In the early naturalization acts, 1790, 1795, 1802, 1855, the only determination to make someone a citizen was if their parents were citizens. If their parents were not citizens in those naturalization acts, any children born here were aliens. Okay? That's a big thing. And, you know, it's only been assumed lately that those born here, you know, ever since Wong Kim Ark case in 1898, you know, they've blurred that subject to the jurisdiction line in the 14th Amendment. And let me say something about that. I know I'm giving you a lot of information here. I have a ton of it in my... Subject to the jurisdiction and within the jurisdiction are both mentioned in the 14th Amendment. They cannot mean the same thing. Okay? Within the jurisdiction means within the jurisdiction of the country, within its territorial boundaries. Subject to the jurisdiction means wholly allegiant to the political family of the United States. Okay?
The short answer to that was, no, it needs to go to the courts rather than directly to the Attorney General. And you were going to add something about that too, Jay.
Yes, actually I have something to add to that and something to add with respect to the Wong Kim Ark case. The Attorney General could bring an action under the Unfair Trade Practices Act. In fact, the Unfair Trade Practices Act gives a lot more power to the Attorney General. And again, if Barack Obama is not eligible to be president, and the Democrats and Obama and his supporters are here raising funds and promoting his candidacy, there's clearly the implication that he's eligible. And so it would be an unfair trade practice for them to be asking people to donate money, donate their time, and vote for him. So Pam Bondi definitely would have the standing to bring such an action. However, she's not. But that particular unfair trade practice provision also provides for any individual, including a corporation, to bring causes of action under that provision. So if she's not doing it, we can. With respect to the Wong Kim Ark case and the minor case, Mike is right. The minor case, that is a holding directly on point. In the Wong Kim Ark case, which happened...
You know, the fact that Virginia Minor was determined to be a natural-born citizen, that is, born of U.S. citizen parents on U.S. soil, was a determination, a judicial determination made in support of the holding of the case. The holding of the case was that citizens don't, by right, have the right to vote in a presidential election. That right is only given by the states. That is still good law today. And in Blacker and McPherson versus Blacker, they actually cite Minor versus Hefferset, which, you know, none of the Obama apologists want to hear about that. But, you know, they performed a test. The test was, did a citizen before the 14th Amendment have the right to vote? That was the test they applied to whether Virginia Minor had the right to vote. And to determine that fact, they had to determine that Virginia Minor was indeed a citizen before the 14th Amendment. Okay? They even say and label the judicial determination within the case that the citizenship of the plaintiff had to be determined. And they determined that before the 14th Amendment, U.S. citizens were those born of U.S. citizen parents on U.S. soil, or they were those that were citizens of the colonies when the Constitution was enacted. That's Article 2, Section 1, Clause 5. In the early naturalization acts, 1790, 1795, 1802, 1855, the only determination to make someone a citizen was if their parents were citizens. If their parents were not citizens in those naturalization acts, any children born here were aliens. Okay? That's a big thing. And, you know, it's only been assumed lately that those born here, you know, ever since Wong Kim Ark case in 1898, you know, they've blurred that subject to the jurisdiction line in the 14th Amendment. And let me say something about that. I know I'm giving you a lot of information here. I have a ton of it in my... Subject to the jurisdiction and within the jurisdiction are both mentioned in the 14th Amendment. They cannot mean the same thing. Okay? Within the jurisdiction means within the jurisdiction of the country, within its territorial boundaries. Subject to the jurisdiction means wholly allegiant to the political family of the United States. Okay?
The short answer to that was, no, it needs to go to the courts rather than directly to the Attorney General. And you were going to add something about that too, Jim.
Yes, actually, I have something to add to that and something to add with respect to the Wong Kim Ark case. The Attorney General could bring an action under the Unfair Trade Practices Act. In fact, the Unfair Trade Practices Act gives a lot more power to the Attorney General. And again, if Barack Obama is not eligible to be president, and the Democrats and Obama and his supporters are here raising funds and promoting his candidacy, there's clearly the implication that he's eligible. And so it would be an unfair trade practice for them to be asking people to donate money, donate their time, and vote for him. So Pam Bondi definitely would have the standing to bring such an action. However, she's not. But that particular unfair trade practice provision also provides for any individual, including a corporation, to bring causes of action under that provision. So if she's not doing it, we can. With respect to the Wong Kim Ark case and the minor case, Mike is right. The minor case, that is a holding directly on point. In the Wong Kim Ark case, which happened...
You know, the fact that Virginia Minor was determined to be a natural-born citizen, that is, born of U.S. citizen parents on U.S. soil, was a determination, a judicial determination made in support of the holding of the case. The holding of the case was that citizens don't, by right, have the right to vote in a presidential election. That right is only given by the states. That is still good law today. And in McPherson versus Blacker, they actually cite Minor versus Happersett, which, you know, none of the Obama apologists want to hear about that. But, you know, they performed a test. The test was, did a citizen before the 14th Amendment have the right to vote? That was the test they applied to whether Virginia Minor had the right to vote. And to determine that fact, they had to determine that Virginia Minor was indeed a citizen before the 14th Amendment. Okay? They even say and label the judicial determination within the case that the citizenship of the plaintiff had to be determined. And they determined that before the 14th Amendment, U.S. citizens were those born of U.S. citizen parents on U.S. soil, or they were those that were citizens of the colonies when the Constitution was enacted. That's Article 2, Section 1, Clause 5. In the early naturalization acts, 1790, 1795, 1802, 1855, the only determination to make someone a citizen was if their parents were citizens. If their parents were not citizens in those naturalization acts, any children born here were aliens. Okay? That's a big thing. And, you know, it's only been assumed lately that those born here, you know, ever since Wong Kim Ark case in 1898, you know, they've blurred that subject to the jurisdiction line in the 14th Amendment. And let me say something about that. I know I'm giving you a lot of information here. I have a ton of it in my... Subject to the jurisdiction and within the jurisdiction are both mentioned in the 14th Amendment. They cannot mean the same thing. Okay? Within the jurisdiction means within the jurisdiction of the country, within its territorial boundaries. Subject to the jurisdiction means wholly allegiant to the political family of the United States. Okay?
The short answer to that was, no, it needs to go to the courts rather than directly to the Attorney General. And you were going to add something about that too, Jim.
Yes, actually, I have something to add to that and something to add with respect to the Wong Kim Ark case. The Attorney General could bring an action under the Unfair Trade Practices Act. In fact, the Unfair Trade Practices Act gives a lot more power to the Attorney General. And again, if Barack Obama is not eligible to be president, and the Democrats and Obama and his supporters are here raising funds and promoting his candidacy, there's clearly the implication that he's eligible. And so it would be an unfair trade practice for them to be asking people to donate money, donate their time, and vote for him. So Pam Bondi definitely would have the standing to bring such an action. However, she's not. But that particular unfair trade practice provision also provides for any individual, including a corporation, to bring causes of action under that provision. So if she's not doing it, we can. With respect to the Wong Kim Ark case and the minor case, Mike is right. The minor case, that is a holding directly on point. In the Wong Kim Ark case, which happened...
The fact that Virginia Minor was determined to be a natural born citizen, that is, born of U.S. citizen parents on U.S. soil, was a determination, a judicial determination made in support of the holding of the case. The holding of the case was that citizens don't, by right, have the right to vote in a presidential election. That right is only given by the states. That is still good law today. And in McPherson versus Blacker, they actually cite Minor versus Happersett, which, none of the Obama apologists want to hear about that. But, they performed a test. The test was, did a citizen before the 14th Amendment have the right to vote? That was the test they applied to whether Virginia Minor had the right to vote. And to determine that fact, they had to determine that Virginia Minor was indeed a citizen before the 14th Amendment. Okay? They even say and label the judicial determination within the case that the citizenship of the plaintiff had to be determined. And they determined that before the 14th Amendment, U.S. citizens were those born of U.S. citizen parents on U.S. soil, or they were those that were citizens of the colonies when the Constitution was enacted. That's Article 2, Section 1, Clause 5. But in the early naturalization acts, 1790, 1795, 1802, 1855, the only determination to make someone a citizen was if their parents were citizens. If their parents were not citizens in those naturalization acts, any children born here were aliens. Okay? That's a big thing. And, it's only been assumed lately that those born here, ever since Wong Kim Ark case in 1898, they've blurred that subject to the jurisdiction line in the 14th Amendment. And let me say something about that. I know I'm giving you a lot of information here. I have a ton of it in my... Subject to the jurisdiction and within the jurisdiction are both mentioned in the 14th Amendment. They cannot mean the same thing. Okay? Within the jurisdiction means within the jurisdiction of the country, within its territorial boundaries. Subject to the jurisdiction means wholly allegiant to the political family of the United States. Okay? Yeah.
The short answer to that was, no, it needs to go to the courts rather than directly to the Attorney General. And you were going to add something about that too, Jerry.
Yes, actually I have something to add to that and something to add with respect to the Wong Kim Ark case. The Attorney General could bring an action under the Unfair Trade Practices Act. In fact, the Unfair Trade Practices Act gives a lot more power to the Attorney General. And again, if Barack Obama is not eligible to be president, and the Democrats and Obama and his supporters are here raising funds and promoting his candidacy, there's clearly the implication that he's eligible. And so it would be an unfair trade practice for them to be asking people to donate money, donate their time, and vote for him. So Pam Bondi definitely would have the standing to bring such an action. However, she's not. But that particular unfair trade practice provision also provides for any individual, including a corporation, to bring causes of action under that provision. So if she's not doing it, we can. With respect to the Wong Kim Ark case and the minor case, Mike is right. The minor case, that is a holding directly on point. In the Wong Kim Ark case, which happened...
The fact that Virginia Minor was determined to be a natural-born citizen, that is, born of U.S. citizen parents on U.S. soil, was a determination, a judicial determination made in support of the holding of the case. The holding of the case was that citizens don't, by right, have the right to vote in a presidential election. That right is only given by the states. That is still good law today. And in Blacker and McPherson versus Blacker, they actually cite Minor versus Happersett, which, you know, none of the Obama apologists want to hear about that. But you know, they performed a test. The test was, did a citizen before the 14th Amendment have the right to vote? That was the test they applied to whether Virginia Minor had the right to vote. And to determine that fact, they had to determine that Virginia Minor was indeed a citizen before the 14th Amendment. Okay? They even say and label the judicial determination within the case that the citizenship of the plaintiff had to be determined. And they determined that before the 14th Amendment, U.S. citizens were those born of U.S. citizen parents on U.S. soil, or they were those that were citizens of the colonies when the Constitution was enacted. That's Article 2, Section 1, Clause 5. But in the early naturalization acts, 1790, 1795, 1802, 1855, the only determination to make someone a citizen was if their parents were citizens. If their parents were not citizens in those naturalization acts, any children born here were aliens. Okay? That's a big thing. And, you know, it's only been assumed lately that those born here, you know, ever since Wong Kim Ark case in 1898, you know, they've blurred that subject to the jurisdiction line in the 14th Amendment. And let me say something about that. I know I'm giving you a lot of information here. I have a ton of it in my... Subject to the jurisdiction and within the jurisdiction are both mentioned in the 14th Amendment. They cannot mean the same thing. Okay? Within the jurisdiction means within the jurisdiction of the country, within its territorial boundaries. Subject to the jurisdiction means wholly allegiant to the political family of the United States. Okay? Yeah.
The short answer to that was, no, it needs to go to the courts rather than directly to the Attorney General. And you were going to add something about that too, Jay.
Yes, actually I have something to add to that and something to add with respect to the Wong Kim Ark case. The Attorney General could bring an action under the Unfair Trade Practices Act. In fact, the Unfair Trade Practices Act gives a lot more power to the Attorney General. And again, if Barack Obama is not eligible to be president, and the Democrats and Obama and his supporters are here raising funds and promoting his candidacy, there's clearly the implication that he's eligible. And so it would be an unfair trade practice for them to be asking people to donate money, donate their time, and vote for him. So Pam Bondi definitely would have the standing to bring such an action. However, she's not. But that particular unfair trade practice provision also provides for any individual, including a corporation, to bring causes of action under that provision. So if she's not doing it, we can. With respect to the Wong Kim Ark case and the Minor case, Mike is right. The Minor case, that is a holding directly on point. In the Wong Kim Ark case, which happened
under our way, a natural-born citizen, you have to have two American citizens parent a child in America. Right. Under their way, it could be a Taliban and a North Korean indoctrinate them in a school somewhere in Asia under Muslim teachings to hate America, and then all you have to do is gin up a birth certificate, drop him in America, give him a degree out of Harvard that nobody can find, and there's nobody friends that he ever had any friends with.
Correct.
And then you raise enough money through all of your pals like Soros and stuff, and you got a president. Is that basically the deal? Okay, thanks. Just want to know the deal.
Just one point of logic. If the purpose of the Natural Born Citizen Clause, and it is the purpose, is to prevent foreign influence into the office of president, that is a fact. It's indisputable, okay? Said so by John Jay in his letter to George Washington in 1787, also in Federalist 68. If the purpose is to prevent foreign influence, then it's impossible that one born a dual citizen is eligible. If the purpose was to prevent any avenue to foreign influence, then allowing a dual citizen to be president opens up a 6-lane highway.
And now we have a president that is so open to foreign influence that he's trying to model the United States government on the failed socialist policies of Europe that are now changing to more conservative. America's going left while Europe's going right. It's amazing. Yes, please.
There's something that bothers me. Is it possible that the reason why nobody will touch this, radio, talk show, conservative, and so on, and Donald Trump has dropped it because they are being forced to silence?
Yes.
Correct.
Absolutely.
And I'll say this.
Yep.
I have experience with this. I don't know if you guys know Joyce on AM 850. Do you get that over here? I don't know if you know.
No.
Well, I got Leo D'Onofrio actually on her program one time. And I actually got on her program a couple times calling in. And then when I kept on my correspondence with her, she actually told me that she did not want to cause riots. That's why she would never talk about it on the radio again. And she was told at that time, I'm sure, after Leo D'Onofrio came on the radio.
Actually, there's a lot of you, if you're a fan of Google, Google the thing about all of the intimidation that is going on against people who are trying to do this. But I'm an optimist, and I have another explanation for that, and I hope I'm right. I don't think it's likely, but I hope I'm right. As you know, in the late fall, there's always some sort of surprise. And I'm thinking that there's a possibility that the Republican Party is going to finally get on the bandwagon about the eligibility issue when it comes time for the election to come around. I think that's a possibility. I'm not going to bet any money on it. And besides, this other more legal approach to it, rather than doing it as a PR program, I realize PR is important. We do PR ourselves. We're trying to get, that's what this meeting is about. But we also want it to be legally defined, as well as it being well-known throughout the community. Okay, any other questions?
I want to make a comment.
Yeah, come on up.
I'll sit here.
Okay, well, that's all right. She can do it any way she wants to.
Yeah.
This is America.
Yeah. You know, I've been really following this for a long time, and you know, I was really excited about the Georgia case, thinking, oh, this might really happen. That all fell apart. And then Sheriff Joe, he's not going to back down. And I think that, why is it that we can't go merge forces with Sheriff Joe and just be a crime investigation? He's a law guy.
Actually, we have joined forces with Sheriff Joe. And what we need, and by the way, I sent emails to every sheriff's office in the United States.
Wow.
Trying to get, oh yeah, I'm a busy guy, trying to get sign-ons for this, and we've had a meager response. But keep in mind, I want everybody to remember this. We only need to do this once. Let me go backwards. where this should have been done. It only takes one member of the Electoral College to challenge the results. One. And we didn't even get that.
I wrote letters to every single one of them before the last electoral college. Every single one of the electors in the state of Florida, I sent a letter to, explaining why Barack Obama
was not a natural-born citizen. I sent this letter to every elector in the state of Florida after the last election. Cheney didn't even ask. They're all involved in it, both sides.
Yes.
Okay, and the media has been told to shut up, basically.
Yep, that's basically what it boils down to. Yes, walk on up here if you don't mind. And while you're walking up here, I'll say, no, I'm talking about, actually make a line over here if you want to, but I was talking to the gentleman at the very back of the room there in the blue shirt. He got his hand up first, or at least I noticed yours first. I want to make it sure, come up here and stand up here. Look, basically there isn't a contest between Democrats and Republicans. That's an old paradigm. The contest is now the ruling elite against the people of the United States. And there's another thing that I say, it's one of my favorite sayings. I have a habit of quoting myself. Yeah, some of you know me, right? I know. Conservatives are the enemy of the government. Liberals are the enemy of the nation because they are not the enemies of the government.
You're here.
All right, come on up here. No, over here.
Thomas Jefferson said patriots were enemies of the government.
I just have one question to you. Fascinating by listening to you.
Give the mic a little
Okay.
closer.
You said that everyone's in the tank, basically, on this issue.
Can't hear you.
Why are people in the tank? Why should they be? I mean, there must be some, should we say, well-to-do, successful, wealthy, powerful individuals who just like the president as much as we do. Why would they be in the tank? I can't believe Donald Trump would love to expose them.
He's been threatened, his life's been threatened.
That's right.
Yeah.
Their life is threatened.
Or their
Are you,
family.
oh, okay, got more?
Then are you saying you think the president's nothing, rather the part of the administration, nothing like a hit?
Some of them.
They're the useful idiots.
I just
Read
think,
Orwell?
yes, I have. Yes.
Right, yeah.
But I would think that, put it this way, I believe a lot of people here probably dislike the president as much as I do for what he's done. I think the president, we're frustrated, we're annoyed. I think a lot of Americans are frustrated and annoyed. I think hell, millions of them probably are. I'm just amazed at this idea that everyone's in the tank. I think we should be able to get together a group of powerful, get a voice loud enough to smash at him ruthlessly. That man he doesn't deserve the courtesy of office because he disgraces it.
Correct. You're here.
Okay. And I think, Mike, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, the media have leaned left for a long time, and it doesn't matter, to them it doesn't matter. The Constitution doesn't matter. They could care less about the Constitution. So, that's what's going on there. Donald Trump, I believe, was, he was a setup to present that fake birth certificate. I think he was working for Obama there, That's what that was all about. He was ginning up this whole controversy for Obama to just whip it out and say, here it is. And then he never touched it, he never saw it, one person in the media touched it, It's all nonsense.
We're going to actually ask you to jump the line. We've got a near centurion here, and rather than make her stand in line, I'm going to get her to the first of the line. And I hope all of you remember that, because I'm now 71, and I want you to respect your elders. All right? You have to hold it close to your lips.
Oh, well, anyway, I don't have much to say, but I was so impressed when I saw the TV last night with Obama and the flag burning and this man who painted it. I thought it was so wonderful. We could put that on every signpost and just show how terrible this is.
Thank you for that comment very much. I don't know if you saw it or not, but there's an artist who's quite popular now, and I agree with you about the fire on the flag, but the one that is my favorite is where Obama is standing there holding a burning Constitution. I thought that was good too. Yeah.
Well, that's what I meant, Constitution.
Not yet.
Okay.
Because I've already read the motion around, so.
Simple question. If there is no false surprise, what is the timeline for us to win in the court system and with the American people who are watching Dancing with the Stars and whatever they watch? They are not informed. And 47 to 49% of people don't pay taxes. And 46% are on food stamps. And many people want the free stuff. There are not too many poor people in this country. They are lazy people. And all these people will vote for Obama again. So what is the timeline? What is the timeline?
Actually, the timeline for Mike's case is the election. The timeline for the case that Jerry is doing never ends. Even after the election, the case that Larry has bought, as well as the case he hasn't bought yet, can be filed even after the election. So we have a timeline on one of the cases, we don't have a timeline on the other.
The other question is, there is the Hillsdale College, and they have a Kirby Center in Washington, D.C., and Dr. Arns teaches the Constitution. Have you gotten in contact with him?
Yes, and they won't address the issue, and I can't believe that. Hillsdale College, which is the quintessential, absolutely independent, conservative higher education institution in the United States, and the answer was, we're teaching the Constitution, we're not interpreting the Constitution for individual cases. That's a legitimate thing to say, but boy, I wish they'd have done something about it.
I will try.
Okay, did you hear that? I will try, I like that.
It's been said that in the American Revolution that only 20 to 25% of the people were really on board with that. It's going to take, and then there's that one thing that pushes it over the edge. But that's basically what's going on here.
Were you up here to ask a question? Yeah, come on up. And you have to hold the mic kind of close to your lips.
I've got two questions. My understanding is that Andrew Jackson's parents were not citizens. I don't know whether anybody can confirm or deny that. The other question is, I'm in the habit of writing letters to the editor and over the years, and they print almost all of them, but on this subject they won't print. And I'm wondering how you broke through the blackout on that.
Actually, I'll answer it in a verse again. When he's talking about broke through the blackout, this handout, this was done by, it's Larry Klayman?
Yes.
Okay, all right. What we're going to do is, remember I told you that Mike's attorney is Larry Klayman?
Can you hear me?
And put it on speakerphone.
Can you hear me now?
Okay, hey Larry, we got a whole room full of people here that have been eagerly awaiting what it is that you have to say, and I'm just going to lay the mic down next to the cell phone and you can talk to them.
I'm very pleased to be able to talk to everyone. Sam did an excellent job in putting this together, the people around him. I just want everyone to know that we are completely dedicated to getting the best possible results in Florida. Florida is my adopted state, as you may know. I ran for the U.S. Senate there myself, ironically, in 2004. I participated in the 2004 v. Bush case up there in Tallahassee, where our current case is pending on the eligibility issue. Many of you remember me as the founder of Judicial Watch and also now of Freedom Watch. And we have a lawsuit in Tallahassee. Florida has more rights than a lot of other states in terms of voter rights. And we are praying that we get the judge that will do the job that needs to be done, because we've seen over the last 3.5 years. What the wisdom of the Founding Fathers, why the Founding Fathers required that the president be a natural-born citizen, much less a citizen at all. We have a president today, and I don't need to tell you much about that, who doesn't consider himself to be American. He does not come from the Judeo-Christian tradition. He considers himself a Muslim. He's even written about that. And he has betrayed our country and, in my view, has committed treason. Just recently, he released classified information to harm any possible strike by Israel, which would, of course, benefit us for national security reasons against Iran. I believe that he's on the payroll of the Iranian regime, much like Bill Clinton was during the Chinagate years. And you probably all remember that when I was at Judicial, we uncovered that bribery scheme with Bill and Hillary Clinton, and it's no accident that Hillary Clinton is Secretary of State under Obama. So what we do is urgent. And I remind people that although the results have not come through yet, that we cannot give up. That Florida, in my view, is the most important state with regard to this next election. And that's why I took this case in my personal capacity, not in a public interest capacity, because it is so important. If Obama loses Florida, he will lose the presidency. And I thank you all for supporting our efforts. Discovery is underway. We can serve discovery immediately. We're preparing that as we speak. Florida does not have a rule that we have to wait to go forward. We will ask for information and subpoena records relating to the birth certificate and the birth certificate itself. And if the judge is honest, he will allow us to determine the truth. We have no choice. The Founding Fathers had to declare independence and wage revolution. Short of that, we hope to be able to wage our revolution peacefully in the courts. Because if we don't, this country will cease to exist shortly. We conservatives and libertarians and people of faith and others, we have a tendency sometimes to think that the world is collapsing. I certainly do, because I take everything seriously. But in fact, today it is collapsing. And that's why what we do is so important and why we cannot give up. And just like our Founding Fathers wrote into the Declaration of Independence, with God's divine grace, we will succeed. It was against all odds that we formed a nation in 1776 and succeeded for the next 200 and some years. But we don't want to lose what God gave us back beginning in 1776. So I thank you for your support. You'll see me down in Florida. I'll be there a lot. We have a few other things up our sleeves, not just the ballot challenge, but a citizens grand jury. I'm going to try to set it up in Ocala County, which should be a favorable spot to have Obama indicted for his crimes as well. And we'll be pursuing other things as well. We're going to do whatever we can to get rid of this individual before he destroys our country. Thank you and God bless.
Oh, hey, and Larry, before you hang up, tell everybody how badly we need money.
Oh, yeah, we do need money. I took the case, Sam knows this, with the expectation that we have the resources to fund it. And at least even in the initial stage, we're only about halfway there. So we really do need your financial support. I didn't mean to downgrade that. We can't do anything without the financial support. And it's the least we can do is to pay with money rather than pay with our lives at this point in time. So please support us. Sam knows how to contribute to that. And it is going to be a costly venture. You can't even bring a small lawsuit today that's looking on a banana peel for very little. So thank you very much for your support.
Thank you, Larry. Okay, hold on a minute. Our time is up, folks. I'm going to answer your question, though. Brent Batten contacted me. It was at his initiation that this article was written. So, give a thumbs up. And not only that, he did it right. I've been interviewed many, many times.
He had a question about Andrew Jackson.
Hold on a minute. I'm going to censor because we are out of time. And yeah, that's right. We're going to do question and answers afterwards that you can while we're cleaning up here. and getting the chairs put away. But I have one more question. I want this fellow to have a chance. Close to the mic.
Okay. Those of us that would like to participate in your do-it-yourself ballot kit, but can't afford the filing fees, is there any solutions that you might suggest there?
Are you going to take it? Okay.
I will take that one. Actually, there are two solutions. One, if you really are indigent, the courts do have a provision that you can file to have a fee waiver. The other thing is you can just get a bunch of people, organize your neighbors to pitch in, and together you can all be plaintiffs. It doesn't matter how many plaintiffs there are. Roughly by the time you pay the filing fee and the service fees, pay for your photocopies and like that and postage, you're probably looking at roughly around $600 will cover your budget. So that would be one approach. And just to get back to the lady about the timetable, if we get before one honest judge, we can file for what's called summary judgment on the foreign paternity issue in 20 days. So, and the gentleman who's asking, well, what can we do, with the people that are copping out of this? Find that one honest judge. Get your friends around the country. Post on blogs, post on the internet, send out emails. Get the people to file this do-it-yourself ballot challenge kit and find that one honest judge who can save America like Larry's looking us for.
Okay, I want you to know that those of you who are vitally interested, including the principals, we're going to do some debriefing in the meeting room at my home. And those of you who are vitally interested in this and still have questions after we break up, you can come to our home. But I want you to know this place is costing me $100 an hour. So we need to break up now because I don't think they're going to gig me for the extra 4 minutes. But we had rented it until 2:30. Thank you all so very much for coming.